Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy, where we were pretty sure going into the Marvel's release what the outcome would be. And we were right. More right than just about the overall outcome. If you have missed my review of the movie itself, I will put the link below in the description for your perusal. The Marvels has been a widely anticipated movie for a couple of years and more. Not, however, widely anticipated in a manner Disney Marvel wanted. No, Kevin Feige and Bob Iger were aware for some time now that every critic of the MCU since before Endgame blew the lid off the box office were eagerly awaiting the Nagasaki-sized crater that would be the result of any sequel to Captain Marvel. The first movie was not good. Neither was the other MCU movie released in the interregnum period between Infinity War and Endgame, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Of the two, Ant-Man was probably better, but not by much. Combined with those two disappointing installments of the MCU was the split in the fandom over the third Thor movie's Taika Waititi-ness, the general downturn in Hollywood's ability to make good movies and television, and Kevin Feige's promise of feminizing the MCU. And you got a fan base that was already prepared for the fall of the MCU before Black Widow even hit the COVID-plagued box office in 2022. 3 years later, and Disney Marvel is sitting in the middle of the ruins asking, what happened? Even as they keep doing what caused the ruins in the first place. Nobody but the shilliest of shill media were surprised when the box office numbers came in for the Marvels this weekend. On Thursday, they brought in $6.6 million, less than the complete dumpster fire that was The Flash back in June. For the whole weekend, they only brought in $46.1 million, almost $9 million less than The Flash's whole opening weekend as well. Unlike The Flash, the Marvel saw substantial drop-offs on both Saturday and Sunday, whereas The Flash barely saw any drop-off on Sunday. The Marvels also saw a catastrophic drop-off on Monday, bringing in only $2.3 million compared to $6.1 million for The Flash. For a movie that, like The Flash, cost over $300 million to make and probably had upwards of another $100 to $150 million spent on marketing, the Marvels will need to clear around $800 million to break even. The Flash, with a better premiere weekend than the Marvels and a better Monday drop, only brought in $266.5 million worldwide in its total run. Above and beyond the fact that Captain Marvel made over $1 billion, the first movie also had very little drop-off on its opening Saturday and Sunday. It had similar percentage drop as the Marvels the first Monday, but that still means it brought in over $10 million. It would also see significant increases the following 2 weekends, adding 8 figures for 2 successive Saturdays and Sundays. Needless to say, the Marvels will not be doing that. What the Marvels does have in common with Captain Marvel is its lack of female viewership. The whole premise behind Kevin Feige's MCU push was to find the mythical quote-unquote modern audience for the MCU. Nobody ever defines this unicorn Hollywood keeps hunting for, but I imagine it has to do with someone other than straight white men, especially since the usual trappings of finding this oft-sought-after creature are chucking out all of the straight white male characters and replacing them with women, minorities, and adherents to the alphabet mafia. Now, if done organically, this is fine. There's a reason Blade and the X-Men from the late 1990s and early 2000s were popular franchises, and it had mostly to do with writing good movies and getting good actors and directors. However, that is not what Kevin Feige and the casting directors at Disney Marvel have done. They have rifled through the Marvel Comics catalog, seen the diversity and inclusion fodder of all new, all different Marvel from the comic book retcon era of 2015 and beyond, and thought, This is what we have been looking for. Alas, most of those characters were shit, and, though they keep trying, those books continue to get canceled due to anemically low sales. Miss Marvel, Kate Bishop, A-Force, which was basically an all-females Avengers like that scene from Endgame. Black Shuri Panther, Blade's daughter, who is supposed to be in the upcoming Disney Marvel Blade movie. Ironheart, Lady Thor, Spider-Gwen, and the current iteration of Captain Marvel all come from this doomed era of Marvel Comics. Kevin Feige, in all his brilliance, decided that translating failed comic books to the big screen would make them good characters. It was supposed to bring in the modern audience because they were tired of the audience they had. You know, the one that turned Marvel Studios into a multi-billion-dollar printing press for Disney, and had opinions about their movies. And Captain Marvel was proof that such quote-unquote modern audience did not exist. The female-centered movie had similar demographics as other Marvel movies. 61% of the audience were men, and 39% were women. I would wager a good chunk of those women were going because their husbands, boyfriends, brothers, sons, grandsons, or nephews wanted to go see it, so they would not miss out on related material when Endgame came out. Ironically, more women went to see Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa's bare chest, than went to see Captain Marvel. Disney Marvel wanted a different audience, and so went about changing things to lure in someone other than the mostly male audience that had been shoveling cash into their coffers since they bought Marvel in order to compete in the, wait for it, boys and men's entertainment and toy markets. And it might have worked if Disney Marvel was still able or willing to lure in good talent to write and direct such movies. In the case of the Marvels, we got Nia DaCosta, with a total of 2 directing credits before being picked to helm the movie, and 5 writing credits, comprised of the 2 movies, a podcast, and 2 shorts. Her co-writer, Megan McDonald, had 2 episodes of WandaVision under her belt before being picked to help write the Marvels. And the last writer, Alyssa Karasik, is a television writer, having written 6 episodes of Loki and 2 episodes of We Crashed, a mini-series for Apple Plus I never heard of before she joined the Marvels. Remember when Disney Marvel brought in great writers and directors? People like Jon Favreau, Kenneth Branagh, Ashley Edward Miller, Joe Johnston, the Russo brothers, Joss Whedon, James Gunn, and John Watts. Not all of them were well known, but all of them were there to make good comic book movies, and had backgrounds in doing similar things elsewhere. Since Taika Waititi was brought in to ruin Thor in Thor Ragnarok, a movie I liked when I first saw it but felt more and more uneasy about it until I watched it again and realized how bad it was, Disney Marvel has been heading for the MCU. The Marvels is just the culmination of the house fire set with Ragnarok. The common theme in the hires for director and writer since Spider-Man Far From Home has been someone who will tick boxes and do what they are told from Feige and his minions. So we get a Kate Shortland, who is mostly a television writer and director, with 3 films to her name and not many more television episodes before being tapped to ruin Black Widow's story arc. Then we get Destin Daniel Cretton, a guy with 5 movies to his name, none of which had a budget higher than $25 million, who gets tapped to helm the $200 million Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings, a CGI mess with a character that was a passenger in his own movie. Shang-Chi was less a comic book adaptation than what Simu Liu's character was doing before showing up in the Barbie movie. And because Marvel has lost its mind, they greenlit a sequel despite the first one losing money. Chloe Zhao then joined the parade of DEI mediocrity with Eternals. Why was she hired? Obviously because her 3 previous films grossed a combined $44 million. And the film she was working on before Eternals, A small character study titled Nomadland had Oscar bait written all over it. It helped that she was Chinese and a woman, too. And the crazy thing about the Eternals is that it's a movie whose stories, results have never been mentioned again, despite the fact that they have a big hand and head of a celestial sticking up out of the Indian Ocean by the end of the movie. But nobody mentions it in any subsequent MCU movie. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is an anomaly. It was a mess of a movie that was probably the second best marketed movie of all time, after the first Captain Marvel movie, of course. Following the $1.5 billion box office monster that was Spider-Man No Way Home, Disney Marvel promoted the Doctor Strange sequel by piggybacking off of Sony's smash hit Spider-Man movie, making audiences think it would continue the story from Spider-Man's outing. After a monster first weekend, the box office receipts fell off a cliff. Not even Sam Raimi could fix the film, and was probably not even allowed to given the fact that it rarely looked like a Sam Raimi movie. Alone of the Phase 4 and 5 MCU directors, Sam Raimi had a long track record of interesting, critically acclaimed, and audience-loved movies from his Evil Dead series on. Except James Gunn, of course, which we'll talk about in a minute. Taika Waititi followed the mess of the Multiverse of Madness with the thorough deconstruction of Thor once more. Of the Thor movies, only the first one really served as a good outing for the Asgardian. Dark World was alright, but failed to continue Thor's story arc that the first one put forth so well. Ragnarok destroyed the story arc, and Thor Love and Thunder took the story arc and used it to color with crayons on. Given that his co-writer wrote utter tripe like Sweet Vicious for MTV, it is no surprise Love and Thunder was complete shit and wasted an actor like Christian Bale and a villain like Gore the God-Killer. They were more interested in queerbaiting, supposedly making Thor 4 the quote-unquote gayest Marvel movie ever made, than making the best Marvel movie ever made. The obligatory Black Panther sequel was next. Sadly, Disney Marvel failed to recast T'Challa as they should have, and as Chadwick Boseman's family wanted them to. Instead, they turned it into an all-new, all-different Marvel Cinematic Universe, using it to butcher a great all-time Marvel Comics character that has been, at times, both hero and villain, and is one of the original Marvel superheroes from the 1930s in Namor the Submariner. Instead of doing Namor right, Ryan Coogler and Disney Marvel decided to make him Mexican. For reasons? Coogler, like those previous directors I've mentioned, had no filmography to speak of, outside of a mildly successful indie movie, Creed, and 3 shorts. Black Panther 2 made money on the back of the loss of Chadwick Boseman, but wound up being a mess. It would also be one of the last MCU projects to be well received. The MCU shows on Disney Plus and the next movie in line all have been failures on one level or another. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, directed by Peyton Reed, flopped. Hard. Reed is one of the last directors left from phases 1 through 3 of the MCU. He directed the first 2 Ant-Man movies and has a television and movie filmography going back to the 1990s. But Ant-Man is clearly a lesser sub-franchise of the MCU, and always has been. That they went so big with the third outing of Ant-Man was surprising given the scope of the character previously. Disney Marvel dumped $200 million into making the movie, and probably at least another $100 million on marketing, meaning the movie lost over $100 million for the studio. It was a mess that was supposed to set up the multiverse saga by introducing Kang in a forum people would actually see. He was supposed to be the next Thanos. Unfortunately, Kang is no Thanos. He had previously been in the series Loki on Disney Plus and was killed rather easily in the finale. He would be killed in this movie too. It was setting up a villain nobody was worried about, because he was already killed twice, with only Ant-Man and Lady Loki doing the killing. How was this guy supposed to trouble the assembled Avengers, among whom included a Thunder God and a Hulk? Thanos at least beat the crap out of both Hulk and Thor. That Kang would die at least one more time in Loki Season 2 only made Disney Marvel's plan for Phases 5 and 6 ridiculous, which is probably why there are strong hints that they're planning on dumping Kang and finding a new big bad. James Gunn's last outing for Marvel with Guardians of the Galaxy 3 came next. For my thoughts on that, see my review of it. Suffice it to say that James Gunn is a brilliant filmmaker that Disney chased away to their rivals over at Warner Bros. Discovery's DC Studios. While Guardians 3 had problems, it was good, made money, and the villain was probably the best since Thanos by a country mile. And James Gunn knew what he was doing. All of that to finally come back to Nia DaCosta and the Marvels. Like its predecessor, the Marvels failed to attract women. As a matter of fact, the numbers have gotten worse. Of those who came out to the theaters to see the Marvels, only 35% were women, and 65% were men. This means not only have they scared away the droves that paid happily to see MCU Phases 1 through 3, but they are now repelling the exact audience they scared that reliable audience away in order to attract. And before anyone starts buying the bullshit excuse that inevitably comes up when female-led movies fail, namely misogyny, remember the stats I just reported. It is not the men eschewing this movie. It is the women. Men had no problem going to see Alien or Terminator, at least through the fourth movie, but let's pretend everything after 2 doesn't exist. Or Kill Bill, or every iteration of La Femme Nikita, or Charlie's Angels, or Wonder Woman, or indeed every Marvel movie until they started to fail because they started to make movies. Guys were wanting a Black Widow movie long before the idiots killed her in Endgame and then decided to rewind the clock and make the movie they should have made post-Captain America Winter Soldier. Natasha Romanoff is hot and kicks ass. Why would we not want that movie? As long as they didn't girl boss her and make her like every other female in the MCU after Endgame, meaning a Mary Sue. It worked for Underworld and Charlie's Angels, before Elizabeth Banks got her hands on the Angels, that is, and it would have worked for Marvel. No, the Marvels is flopping hard because a major chunk of the MCU faithful, those who were comic book fans first and were there from the time Marvel released Blade and the X-Men in 98 and 2000, are either gone or going. Other than maybe Deadpool, there is nothing on the horizon to entice us. It all looks like shit. And even word out of Deadpool makes me think that one is in trouble. Nia DaCosta and her co-writers were the wrong people to create the Marvels. Even Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, the clowns who popped out Captain Marvel, would have been the wrong people to head this movie. It needed someone who had experience, talent, and was not wedded to Kevin Feige's ideology. Alas, we got neither experience and talent, nor someone not wedded to Kevin Feige's ideology. That is all I have for this video. If you like what I do here, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and comment down below. More news out of Marvel will be the next video probably, and I'm still working on the third DC on Film video. Until then, tschüss.